Hi, it's Ananda from Vital, and today's topic is chemical sun protecting agents. I have discussed this briefly in the past, and in particular I concentrated on nanoparticles, but today's topic is going to discuss the difference between UV absorbers and UV blockers. And the reason that I'm talking about this topic is twofold. One, some recent research has come up, which I'll explain in a minute, and another, of course, the second reason is that I've had a request on the blog to discuss this topic, and so here goes. Recent research has shown that chemical UV absorbers, there may be some risk of skin photosensitization when using these. So I will go on to explain a little bit about the chemistry and the way that these work in the skin, so you have a greater understanding about the problems or the risks that come up with chemical UV absorbers. Okay, so we have two types of sun protecting agents, and the first is UV blockers, and UV blockers are ingredients such as titanium dioxide or zinc oxide that sit on the surface of the skin, and when the sun rays come down they literally repel or block the sun's ray so that they're deflected from being absorbed into the skin, and therefore minimizing skin damage. Now, I did discuss nanoparticles, and it is important with relation to both of these ingredients, and it is really important due to the risk of nanoparticles to avoid titanium dioxide and zinc oxide in this form. However, micronized titanium dioxide and zinc oxide is considered safe because it's not absorbed into the skin's surface and therefore doesn't go into the bloodstream. And it provides a relatively effective UV blocking agent, so it provides protection from the sun's harmful UV rays. So let's talk about the difference between that and a chemical UV absorber. Now, chemical UV absorbers, they don't actually block the sun's ray. It actually absorbs into the chemical absorber. It absorbs the UV photons and stops them from being absorbed by the skin, but absorbs them in the chemical agent. Now, the problem starts if the skin actually absorbs the chemical UV absorber, because it will then release that UV photon or the energy from the UV photon into the skin. If it's on the surface, that's fine, because once you have a shower, you'll wash away that chemical sunscreen and the energy from the UV photon will go with it. But if it's absorbed into the skin, it releases the energy or the built-up energy from the UV photon, and that can have a problem, or that can cause problems with the skin. The reason being is that chemical UV absorbers, they're fine when there's intense sun, but if you walk into a cool, shady place, and such as walking into the house after being out in the sun, or a day at the beach or at the park, and then you walk into the cool interior of the house and your skin temperature cools down, the UV absorber will release the energy of the photon, which will actually, if not sitting on the surface of the skin, if that has absorbed into the skin, the energy from the UV photon will be released into the skin and may cause instability in the surrounding molecules, and this results in an increased likelihood of free radical damage and skin irritation. The long-term net result of this is potential increased risk of skin cancer. Okay, so I'm not saying from one event or even numerous events, but if with repeated actions and enough UV damage and enough free radical damage and skin irritation, the net result may be an increased risk in skin cancer. Okay, and that's something that nobody wants. So there are UV skin absorbers that are considered safer than others, but they're the problematic ones. I will now read out so you've got a list, and I'll actually put them at the bottom of this YouTube video as well, so that you can actually see and check against the label of your products those UV absorbers that may be at increased risk of releasing that energy into the skin and causing free radical damage. So those are octocrylene, octomethyloxycinnamate, benzophenone 3 and benzophenone 4. Now, as I said, it's not definitive that they increase the risk of skin cancer under normal conditions, but where there's smoke, there's fire, and the research is starting to push us in direction that these may be more harmful than other UV absorbers. The question is, what poses the greatest risk, sun damage or, the secondary damage from the UV absorber releasing the energy of the sun into the skin? Well, I don't think any or either of them pose acceptable risk, and so there's ways to minimise the risk from both sun damage and secondary damage from these UV absorbers. And the first one is that you minimise exposure to the sun. So that includes having your predominant sun exposure for vitamin D and everything else in the early morning and the late afternoon. So not going out in the middle of the day. The peak times between 11 and 1. Although I have to say in Australia those peak times are becoming increasingly intense and the UV rays are stronger due to the hole in the ozone layer. So you might extend that from 10 till 3. The second point is to use UV blockers, or at least use UV absorbers that are from the less harmful category. So excluding those that I've listed from any sunscreen product that you use, or using a blend of safe UV absorbers and UV blockers such as micronized zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. Now again, you can hear what I've said about nanoparticles in a previous blog, which I'll also list below this video. The third one, and this comes from an ad that ran in Australia during my childhood, and it's called Slip, Slop, Slap. And it's basically slip on a shirt, slap on sunscreen, which we've talked about, and here we go. Slip, slop, slap, slip on a shirt, slop on sunscreen, and slap on a hat. And that's just a really good way if you're going out in the midday sun or you have to be exposed, taking the necessary precautions. And finally, using an after sun care product or a sunscreen that contains antioxidant ingredients, because the basic risk that we're looking at with sun damage is that it's going to cause increased free radical damage in the skin. So one way of counteracting that or supporting the skin health is to use a product that also contains antioxidants to counteract any potential free radical damage. You can think about things like Japanese green tea extract, or vitamin C, and both of those are great antioxidants for the skin and will help minimise redness and irritation and free radical damage to the skin. So on that note, this summer, slip, slop, slap. Look for sunscreens that contain safe UV absorbers, or choose a sunscreen that contains UV blockers. If you've got any questions or comments, please go to the blog, vitalblog.org, and please let me know. I'm always happy to reply and would love to hear what you have to say. In the meantime, have a great day.